Ladies and gentlemen, it is the Greg Cherry Show. Greg Cherry alongside Jeff Meacham. And we are not coming to you with our normal, is hubris the right word? I guess it could be.
Normal pep in our step. How about
that works. Because there's been very serious things that have been happening, not only in this country, also online. And we're going to address both of those because yesterday just seemed like everything just, it was an insane day. And instead of dedicating our stream to what we do normally, which is the fun, it's the lightheartedness, it's the escape from reality, we all need to have a serious talk. And even though this is not a incredibly large platform, let's be honest, like I don't hit the views that news sites hit or like popular, bloggers hit or whatever. I understand that. So I'm going to ask you to do something. Everybody who's watching, I'm going to ask you to do something, and I implore you to help me out with this because I think a lot of people need to hear these messages. And some of them are so blinded in their political views that they need an opinion of somebody who doesn't fight for either side. So if you could, I don't ask you guys to do this normally, but for this particular episode, I would greatly appreciate you sharing this episode on all of your forms of social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I know you can't link share on Instagram, but any social media that you have, please share this video. On today's show, we are going to talk about the school shooting that happened in Texas yesterday at an elementary school. And beyond that, and that will take up the majority of the show, I also want to address this, which is also a very serious issue. It seems like we're jumping down the throats of this group of people, but there's a very serious message behind it that also needs to be addressed. So we are going to be talking about Ringside News. It's not giving them a platform. It's not giving them the spotlight that they need because it's not a spotlight. It is a serious issue that we need to address. Yesterday in Texas, I believe the death toll went up to 21 when it was all said and done.
That sounds right.
19 students and 2 adults. And mind you, these are not high school age students. Not that what type of people they are matters, but in this case, it was 19 children, 10 and under, who were killed by an 18-year-old. What these kids did to deserve this was absolutely nothing. Let me make that clear. There is no excuse that you can make that would wash this away and be like, oh, okay, that's understandable. No, this feels like it was premeditated. Like this individual, whose name I will not put on here, whose name I will not speak because I believe he's dead. So right now he's rotting in hell. Or at the very least he should be. And God forgive me for that. There's nothing you can say to make this situation okay. There's nothing that you can say to make it kosher. There's nothing you can say to make it better for these families who lost members of their families. And what I feared would happen with this situation, especially on social media, is exactly what happened. Immediately. Maybe not immediately, but maybe like an hour or two after some facts started coming in, it became political discourse.
Of course it did.
Because politics has infected every part of our lives.
Yep.
And it's to the point where why do we even argue about things? We yell at each other. We're angry at each other. We want stuff to happen. I understand a lot of people do not care for the sentiment of thoughts and prayers. And somebody on Twitter, I don't remember who it was at this point, made a good point about this. And this is me speaking as a Christian, that the thoughts and prayer sentiment coming from somebody who has no love in their heart is meaningless. I'm sure there's a Bible verse about that somewhere.
Very likely.
But in the same breath, and if this offends people, I'm sorry. And I'm sorry I'm not reading comments. I'm sorry we're not really doing super chats today. If you want to donate, that's your discretion, quite frankly. We're going to be doing another show tomorrow.
We appreciate it.
You know, we do appreciate it, but we're not addressing those tonight. Those same people who, and not all of them, but a lot of people that mock the thoughts and prayers sentiment obviously don't have their faith in God, but they have their faith in Washington. And quite frankly, that's disgusting in and of itself. Because let me tell you something. Faith is supposed to be in the things that you do not see. We see what Washington does, or quite frankly, doesn't do.
Yeah.
We see that politics is a reality show. I've said this before. I am wearing a shirt that says politics is a work. That is not a clever marketing slogan to sell merchandise. It's the truth. Republicans and Democrats alike, it is not a one-party issue. Republicans and Democrats both put on this facade in front of the cameras wherever there's an opportunity. They post it on social media because they have to look good and be like, yeah, we support you. Yeah, we do this. Yeah, we do that. Then why don't you actually do what you say you're going to do? This is not an isolated incident. Columbine was 23 years ago. 23. That means we've gone through 5 presidents since then. Clinton, Bush, Obama, Trump, Biden. And nothing's changed. It is not a one-party issue. Are Republicans at fault? Absolutely. Are Democrats at fault? Absolutely. You need to stop thinking that it's one side or the other. It's both of them. It's the combination of them. They can give you lip service all day long. But until they put their pens to paper, until they put their minds together and actually do something for this damn country, it all means nothing. I could give you the same lip service. I could tell you all of the things that I'm going to do. But I'm not an elected official, and that's not my job. My job, well, as far as this is concerned, as far as this channel is concerned, my job is to be entertaining. My job is not necessarily to be informative. Let's be honest. I am not a political talker whatsoever. I'm not. And I kind of avoid that like the plague because of the negative connotation that being a political mind brings. So why is it so hard to actually get something done? Biden put out like a few tweets saying he was going to get something done. It's like, okay, well, get off of Twitter and actually do something. You're the president. Congress is Congress. Go to Washington. But what was it? Chuck Schumer said, or one of the Democrats said, that a decision wasn't going to be made until after the Senate recess, so after Memorial Day. So you guys are busy with vacation. That's good. We got problems in this world, but go take a break from the absolutely nothing that you're doing.
Go have your barbecues and have a great weekend.
Yeah.
The fuck.
While you guys are eating hot dogs and hamburgers, people are going to be planning funerals. But you do you, boo. Okay.
If I may, real quick here, Greg, before you go on here, somebody I follow on social media reposted this and then had their own opinions on it. But at the end of the day, I want you to really listen to this, folks. Today is the 145th day of 2022. The shooting in Texas is the 212th mass shooting of 2022. We've been in the pandemic as far as this COVID-19 virus and all the offshoots that it has mutated into for 2 years. We've had more school shootings in this country than we've had days of the year, this year alone. Gun violence is a public health crisis, is what this post says. It's one of those, people that, I follow or people that you may follow weren't necessarily born here or even live here now, but there are a lot of people that, came from other parts of the world that, and the quote was, the relationship with guns is different because they don't interpret guns as a symbol of freedom. You know what? This isn't freedom, y'all. This is death. This is tragedy. This is just inexcusable at this point. Like you said, Greg, Columbine was 23 years ago. And I have said for years, I've said it since it happened out here in our community that, our city was was the third safest city in the nation at one point. And we'll never have a school shooting. We'll never have to deal with that. We're not urban blight. We're not down. It happened. And it keeps happening all over this country. Like Dwayne said, it averages out to 13 shootings a day. When are the people that Greg is, addressing in the shirt he's wearing going to wake the hell up and realize that it's a real problem? I dare say it's a bigger issue now, even more than it was 2 years ago, than the pandemic, than the COVID-19 virus. I'm sorry, 1.3. I can't. You have to remember something. I had a concussion yesterday. I had a lamp literally fall on my head, so trying to read something from that far away and not blow it up on the screen is difficult. I apologize, James and Dwayne, for misreading your comment. 1.3 shootings a day is still not good.
No.
That's more than one shooting per day in the country alone. Where you see another stat where they had the shooting over in the United Kingdom in a similar situation, and immediately things were rectified to the point where there hasn't been a school shooting over there since. Not a one.
Let me just speak to something else that kind of clicked in my head yesterday. I believe that this rise in political anarchy was caused and accentuated by two major problems that we refuse to address. The 24-hour news media, which has basically desensitized us to any news because there's always something happening.
Yep.
There is always something going on that we don't get enough time to process that before you throw something else at us.
Exactly.
The Buffalo shooting was already forgotten about because of this news cycle.
Yep.
Like 10 people lost their lives in Buffalo, and that was pushed to the back burner. Like all those people who lost their lives, forgotten about. Nothing done.
Nope.
And now we have to deal with this tragedy. We had to deal with it with Sandy Hook. We had to deal with it with, there's countless others.
Countless others.
And also social media.
Oh, yeah.
Social media has gotten to the point where, and Twitter especially, Twitter has gotten so toxic, it is absolutely unbelievable.
It's abhorrent. It's terrible.
And I'll address that later because that plays into our next topic.
Yeah.
But we have become such a vitriolic society that we don't feel human compassion anymore. We don't care for our fellow humans like we used to. We hold on to ideas. We don't care about humans anymore. We are becoming less and less human ourselves. We used to preach, love and tolerance and stuff like that. Like you used to hear people preach, oh, we have to love each other. We have to, tolerate people's lifestyles. And, those mindsets are good. Like those ideas are good. But when our execution is to completely dismiss anybody's opinions who are different than ours, like we don't even try to work with them. We just hate them instead. Now, granted, do some people have terrible thoughts? Of course. I am not justifying anybody's, terrible opinions. I'm not justifying hateful opinions. What I'm saying is if somebody has a good idea, if somebody has a solution to a problem, then maybe they should be heard out and not dismissed because of who they are or what they believe. So Washington, if anybody in Washington even cares to see this, which I'm sure they do. I mean, they spy on us all the time. If anybody in Washington cares to actually sit down and listen to this message, take this away. I don't care what party you represent. I don't care what ideals you vowed to hold, because quite frankly, all of you suck at holding them.
Yep.
So here's an idea. Instead of blaming the opposite party for the lack of progress that this country has made, because it has been, again, 23 years since Columbine and zero progress. In fact, maybe even negative progress has been made in regards to this. And you can say, oh, it was the other party. Oh, it was the other party. No, it's both of you. It is absolutely both parties. If you can't figure out how to work together, it's on you too. You all have jobs. All 600 plus of you have jobs, and none of you are doing them. Not a single one. Get off Twitter, get off social media, get your ass to Washington, and do your fucking job. Or you know what? Maybe maybe, just maybe, America should throw every single one of your asses out of Washington and we'll put people in there that will do something. How about that? Would that be good? Or does that not work with your big business partners or your Hollywood buddies or whatever the case may be? Fucking do something. If I didn't perform at my job, if I just sat on my ass and let things happen and let chaos reign, I would be fired. Why the hell aren't any of you? You don't do shit. Get off of social media and do something. You say there's no time to talk. That's because you guys have no time to act. You're too busy, on your boats or on planes to other countries. For the love of God, would somebody do something in Washington, D.C., the most useless city in the world? Please. I am begging somebody in Washington to actually have an idea of working together for the betterment of America, not for the benefit of donkeys or elephants. Nobody gives a shit what the political parties want. We want what America wants. Do something for us. But you don't care. You don't care. It's all talking points. You only care about Americans when they're placing their ballots. The rest of the time, you could give a shit less. Tell me I'm wrong.
No.
Tell me,
Tell
me that you actually care about the American people. Like you have that in your heart, that you are not fighting for Democratic or Republican ideals. You are fighting for America because you have a heart for the people. None of you can tell me that because you're all liars. Every single last one. I am begging you. I am begging somebody. I want this sent to like every single political person in the world. Every single political person in America. Send it to your senators. Send it to the president. I don't care. Maybe someday they'll get the message to actually work together and not come up with excuses. There's no time for excuses. People are dying on your watch. And you don't do anything about it because you're too busy planning your vacations. Politics, it has done nothing but devalue, desensitize, and demolish this country. The Republican, Democrat, two-party system is a failure. Put people in office that are actually going to do their jobs, or nothing will change. You want change? It's not putting the opposite party in, because guess what? That's not going to change anything. It's going to change the color, and it's going to change the letter of who's in office. You can transpose them all at some point. It's not going to matter. You need to put people in there with a heart for the country and not a heart for their buddies outside of Washington.
Heart for the people overall, not just the people that are lining their pockets. I had a couple things. First of all, what you just said, I loved Robin Williams' take many years ago when he had a show on Broadway. I think political people in politics should be made like NASCAR drivers. They should have to wear the patches of the people that are supporting them because clearly they've got sponsors. That way we know exactly who we're dealing with, what we're dealing with, when we're dealing with it. Number one. I'll go you one better than this has been going on for 23 years since Columbine. How long did it take them to catch Kaczynski?
I know it's been going on longer than this. I'm just
saying this whole, violence for the sake of violence stuff has been rampant through this country since the formation of this country, and people just turned a blind eye. Oh, Second Amendment. No. It has nothing to do with anything on that paper that was written almost 300 years ago, by the way. I'll grant you 250. How about that? that sit there behind, bulletproof glass, ironically enough, in Washington. Just because something was written a long time ago, just because something was established by people who came before us, and we should have respect for the people that came before us, doesn't mean you can't change it. There is a thing called an amendment that you can add to this Constitution. I know that because I had more than one government class, more than one political science class in my education. At one point, I was a history major, so I had to study that document letter by letter, word by word, phrase by phrase. So you can change it. You just don't want to. Because if you change it one way, the people that sell the guns, the people that promote the guns are going to be up your butt. And if you do it the other way, the bleeding hearts will be up your ass. There's no win for you guys. There shouldn't have to be a win. The win should be this country's safe. The win should be not sending 19 little children to school and getting them killed while they're trying to get their basic education. It shouldn't be 19 people, 19 sets of parents having to send their kids to school, not knowing they're not going to see them at the end of that day. It shouldn't be people like my friend, Adam Pierce, who sent his 10-year-old daughter to school yesterday, or earlier this morning, excuse me. She's in 4th grade. It's her last day of school and has to wonder about police patrols because of what happened in Texas. I know what's more disgusting, the fact that my friend had to go through that, or the fact that I wasn't even surprised to read his tweet. The actual hell is wrong with this place. That is just, like you said, Greg, desensitization. Buffalo happened, less than 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
And I couldn't even tell you what part of Buffalo it happened. I couldn't tell you what part of, anything like that, because it's already issue of the past. I appreciate people messaging me and asking me to jump in here. We're not looking to have anybody jump in today. It's just going to be Greg and I, because quite frankly, we don't want to really have a whole lot of cooks in the kitchen, so to speak. It's just, this is primarily Greg's platform. I just wanted to say my piece because I had the neurons fire what little they can today.
It's like I said, too. If you want to contribute to this conversation, share this video.
Yeah,
that is more of a contribution than you actually being on screen. Trust me. It's not negating what you have to say, but we need people. We need as many people as possible to hear what we have to say, to get the reality of the situation, to not get a skewed Democratic or Republican view of it. We need a straight up the middle. This is what needs done. Yeah. And quite frankly, we have such low expectations of Congress that if they were to even do one remote small thing that made progress, we would give them a standing ovation because our expectations are that low. We have no expectations of Congress. Zero. Because they don't do anything. It doesn't matter what party is in office. They're not going to do anything. It's just going to be political arguments because November's coming up. So we'll settle it there. We're not going to fix the problem now. And then in 2 years, you can vote to keep Biden in or to vote a Republican in or, God forbid, vote a third party in. Imagine that. You actually vote a third party in, and maybe they actually change stuff because they don't have the Republican or Democratic ideals, in heavy quotes, that they have to follow. It's just maddening to me that we go through this cycle, we have the same arguments, and nothing gets done. How about you put a wrench in the system? Light a fire under their ass and make them get something done. Because if there is no consequence, if there is zero consequence for the people in office, then why would they fix anything? We really should be, if you don't fix the problem, you're gone. But if they get reelected, you don't care either. If you put the same people in office that cause these problems, you don't care either.
It goes back to what we've been talking about for a couple of weeks now, Greg. It's politics is a work, wrestling is real. It's what have we been talking about the last 2 weeks since the whole walkout with Mercedes and Trinity? We've all stated for years the way to hit those in power is to hit them in the pocketbook. Unsubscribe to the network, stop watching the television shows, stop buying the merchandise. That trickles up the chain too. Stop voting for these nimrods. Stop holding, political advisory councils for these people. Stop supporting. But they won't, because they're ignorant and here's a phrase that I very rarely use on any of my shows because it's such a damn hot thing to say. Chosen ignorance. They choose to remain unaware and just let people do for them. That happens in Washington. That happens in the local governments. That happens in sports. That happens everywhere because people just don't want to do for themselves. They figure they know what they're doing. I got news for you, folks. The people that are supposed to know what they're doing, they don't. You know how I know? Because I had a trained, licensed physician medicating me for what's been going on up here in my head for over 2 decades, and went away from that doctor, been away from him for half a year now, never felt better in my life on that front. So just because they're the established doesn't mean they know everything. Just because they've been there for a long time doesn't mean they have all the answers. Just because we've had a 2-party system for however many, that's the way to go. I've chastised more than one of my friends for, I'm not going to vote. It doesn't matter. It does. The problem is not enough people think like I do or think like other people do that enough votes will matter. So they just don't. They either don't cast a vote at all or they just go with what's comfortable, what's familiar, and no change happens.
And it's also a very dangerous mindset to say something like, you're always going to vote Republican or vote blue no matter who. If you have that mindset, you are already selling your soul, essentially. It is, Cleveland Browns to Deshaun Watson level of selling your soul to that political party.
Yep.
Like, you don't care what they do, you support them. That is dangerous.
That's frightening.
And if that's your mindset, you're already gone, and I don't think there's anything I can do to help you.
No.
If you are of the mindset that one party is so evil that the other party could, legitimately go out there and murder people and you would still support them because they're not the other party, that's a bad mindset to have. And that's a very extreme example, obviously. But you do not want to have that mindset because everybody in office right now, everybody that's been tenured, everybody who's been in Congress for the last 30 plus years, that means this country has been operating the same way for 30 plus years. All those people who have been in office that have made their careers, they're not going to change anything. Why would you think they would? It's been fine for them for as long as they've been in office. Why would they enact change?
Yep.
If they don't change, this country doesn't change. If you don't change who you vote for, what consequences do they have? They have none because you're going to vote for them anyway.
Here's how bad it's got, Greg. Here's how bad it's got. I know we weren't gonna do comments, but I gotta put this up because I want my initial reaction to this. Kubra with a great one. Put a reader in the schools on all guns that can't come off, and when they enter a bell goes off and alerts the class and the doors lock and traps the shooter in between outside in the school. My initial reaction, this is the problem, is the politicians, oh, it costs too much money to try to enact that stuff. Takes too much time, too much effort, too much money. How much of those 19 little lives worth at this point?
Not enough.
The fact that my initial reaction to that comment right there was them going, because I know they would, is too much money, too much time, too much effort. Again, 19 children, 2 adults alone yesterday, plus the people in Buffalo, plus the people at Columbine, plus people at Sandy Hook, plus people. Like I said, 220-something shootings just in this last almost just shy of 5 months already. But the effort is not worth it. The time is worth it. Not worth it. The money that we spend on ungodly, stupid things out of Washington, out of Sacramento, out of whatever capital you want to fill in there, is not worth the lives of those people. Okay, cool.
So I implore you to share this video as much as you can, because that's another thing. If you just let this go and you let this be just a regular episode, then we've wasted our breath for the last 40 minutes.
Yep.
If you don't want change, if you don't want somebody who has a different mindset coming in and like shaking what you believe to your very foundation, then what are we doing here? We need that change. You need somebody who's going to tell the truth the way it is with zero political spin, because I could give a fuck less what the people in Washington, D.C. think. I could give a fuck less if they lost their job tomorrow.
Yeah. Exactly.
In fact, I hope all 600 plus of them do.
Yep.
Just throw them all out of office, start over.
And before you people go out there and say, oh, well, they're just, I guarantee you, it might take you a second or two to think about it, but if you don't know somebody directly, you know somebody that knows somebody that has been affected by anything that we're talking about today. So, it might take a 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon thought process, but you do. So if you don't give a shit, fine. That person will. And if you give a shit about that person, then you should.
So please. Share it on your Twitter. Share it on your Facebook.
Please.
I don't ask this for every single episode.
No.
Like, we appreciate the people that join us each and every single week. This particular episode, I want everybody to watch. Seriously. I want this show to go viral.
Yep.
And that's not something that I can do.
Nope.
If more people watch it, this show will go viral, and maybe something somewhere will click in the head.
It's actually
I don't want to hear any whataboutisms. I don't want to hear any, well, Republicans do this or well, Democrats do this. Screw all of that. None of them work together, and that's the point.
Right.
So, Washington, if you don't feel like doing anything about this, then it's clear to you those kids' lives don't matter.
Thank you, Ray. We appreciate that, man. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. I do appreciate that. Let people know.
It's just such a damn shame that it has to come to this, because you had an amazing weekend. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Yeah. It's just, this needed to be said. This needed to be addressed, and what we're going to talk about here in a second definitely needs to be brought up, especially among the people that watch this show in particular. So yes. It's just...
So for regular viewers of the Greg Cherry Show, we are going to do our normal episode tomorrow at the same time, 7:00 Eastern.
Yep.
And we are going to, we're going to have a fun show, because yes, a lot happened that I do want to discuss. Jack of all trades happened. The no DQ dinner happened. All of that is good stuff, and I want to talk about it, but this needed to be talked about.
Yep.
So, thank you for tuning in today.
Yes.
Tune in tomorrow for the regular show. But we're not done yet, because if any of you follow Ringside News, which nobody should, honestly.
Yeah, especially now.
Ringside News was trash for a long time because they hired, I have this gimmick where I just change his name every single time to something ridiculous. they hired Buck Swiffer to, you know, do his terrible wrestling rants, and you know he does his, you know, whose butts are the best. If you know who I'm talking about, I'm not going to actually name his name because, quite frankly, he doesn't deserve the airtime.
No.
But little did we know how trash the entire site was.
Right at the top.
Yesterday on Twitter, the owner of Ringside News, along with the actual like business account for Ringside News,
right,
tweeted out some very transphobic comments to Nyla Rose. And one of the comments, and I have to pull this up because it didn't make me laugh, but when somebody is ranting on something and they own themselves in the process without realizing it, it's funny. So I want you to listen to this. This is a tweet you've seen, I believe. This is a direct quote. So this is not coming from me. This is coming from Steve Carrier.
And we can't put it up on screen because the chicken shit deleted all of his tweets about it. So,
I mean, I have the screenshot, but I'm just going to read it for the sake.
No, I understand what you're saying.
So, in quotes from Steve Carrier. Hilarious. Goddamn right. Yeah, I don't think the first ever AEW women's champion should be a man. That's dumb as fuck. It should be a woman, and if you don't like that, eat shit. Direct quote from Steve Carrier.
Yep, verbatim.
Obviously a very transphobic comment because, you know, Nyla Rose has been one of the best parts of AEW. Her Twitter game is absolutely hilarious, by the way. If you don't follow Nyla, you should, because
she is an amazing person. I've had a chance to work with her. She is great. I can't say enough good things.
But lost in that is the fact that Steve thought Nyla was the first women's champion when it was Riho. So not only was he mad about something, he was wrong on his facts, which is very par for the course for Ringside News.
Wait, you're saying a wrestling news site was incorrect with information and didn't bother to fact check?
Well, I'm saying Ringside News was that site, which
but they have so much inside information. They clearly know everything they're talking about.
Yeah, the inside of their inside information looks like this, basically.
Right. Yeah, and let's not even. I mean, granted, the heart and soul of this is he trashed Nyla because she's a trans citizen. He completely negated Riho's inaugural history-making reign as the first ever champion of that company. So he's a double dick.
Yeah, he basically, you know, was in a rant and didn't even bother to fact check his own tweet. That's not the important part of that. It's just it's kind of like a side quest of, wow, he's an idiot.
Yeah.
Because he misspoke in facts, but like during his, you know, heavy bout with transphobia.
Right.
Why he decided to go in on Nyla Rose, I don't know. I don't know where it spawned from. I don't know why it was necessary, but
what's the thing? It wasn't necessary.
Between him, Storms, and, you know, JD from New York, like all of those people just need to go, you know, on a canoe in the Pacific Ocean and get a hole in the middle of it. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that those kind of comments aren't needed. And because of those tweets, because I was one of several, Ringside News's partnership with USA Today was terminated, which my question was, how the hell did they get a partnership with USA Today to begin with?
Probably because we were talking about in the first part of the show. If we're going to be honest. Par for the course.
It's absolutely maddening that people like that get notoriety. Yes, it's a lot of negative notoriety, but it's frustrating to people like us who, you know, genuinely A, care about people and don't tweet hateful things out about each other, but B, people who are actually trying to like be successes for themselves, but jagoffs like this get all the press because he's an a-hole. I don't get that. And I'm not trying to say, hey, we deserve the spot they're in. That's not what I'm saying at all.
No.
What I'm saying is, why are we giving guys like this press? And I'm aware of the irony because I'm talking about it for 10 minutes. Right. I'm very aware of that. But why are we giving this guy a position? Why has Ringside News not been a thing of the past from years ago? There's no reason they should exist when you have sources like Sean out there. Admittedly, but transphobia, and that's another part of the trigger warning. If you don't like trans people, if you don't like gay people, you don't like anybody in the LGBT community just because of who they are, that's another part of the problem. And I've spoken this to several people that I consider myself a Christian. And a lot of people believe that being like Jesus is to be sinless. And none of us are going to be. That's not anything we can even strive to be. We all have faults. Being like Jesus is to love people and care for people for who they are. You can't change them. You can't hate people because they sin differently than you sin. That's not how God sees it. And the Christian community really needs to get their head out of their ass when it comes to that.
Yeah.
You need to show the love of Jesus to people, even if you disagree with them. There are atheists who show more of the love of God than Christians. I may have blown some people's minds with that, but it's true.
Right.
I've seen people who don't believe in God care more about people and genuinely have that heart that don't believe in God than some Christians who preach, than some Christians who stand by that, but focus on the political BS of it all.
Yep.
Christianity, like everything else, has become politicized. They say, oh, God's a conservative. God doesn't care about political parties.
Separation of church and state. Oh, wait, it doesn't exist anymore.
It's
should, but it doesn't.
I'm just, why are people so stupid?
That's the bottom line of the show today. Why are people that are supposed to be those who decide, those who report on what is decided, the stupid ones above all else? Here's the bottom line with RSN. They have, for whatever reason, become a valid, reliable news source over the advent of the internet wrestling community, which is roughly 20 plus years or so. Okay, if some people want to read the stuff that they have exclusive, that's great. And you know what? I don't begrudge them anything, just like I don't begrudge actual news being reported. That's fine. That's your job. You're supposed to report the news within the industry. Steve-O, nobody gives a fuck if you like trans people or not. Nobody gives a shit if you're transphobic. Report the news and put the goddamn device down, and that's it. This is the news. Sasha and Naomi have apparently walked out. This is what we know. This is your opinion. Trans people are such and such. There's news and there's opinion. If you have a thing that says Ringside News, how you feel about Nyla, how you feel about anybody's religion, anybody's gender, anybody's anything is just that, your opinion. And like I've said multiple times, opinions are like assholes. Most people have one and they usually stink. And yours reeks like 3-day-old milk. You shithead. Anyway, carry on. Sorry.
No, you're good.
So chaps my already red ass to no end, man.
Ringside News is basically the National Enquirer of wrestling news organizations. And that's being incredibly generous.
Incredibly.
So don't be transphobic. Don't support politics. Love and care for each other. So I'm gonna leave you guys with this. No matter what people tell you, no matter what people say to you, no matter where people come from in life, please do your best to spread love and kindness, no matter what you believe. Do not force your beliefs on somebody else, but show them, everybody, what it means to be loved. Because there are some people out there who don't know what love is. And I'm not talking about romantic love. I'm just talking about being cared for.
Right?
Care for people. Love people. Treat people with kindness. It'll get you way further in this life. And it might save somebody's life to do that. It may save a whole bunch of people's lives to do that. Care for people. You never know what somebody is going through. Please, I ask every single one of you watching this today, show love to people, care for them, change the world with your kindness. For Jeff Meacham, I am Greg Cherry. We will see you tomorrow with a normal edition of the Greg Cherry Show. Take this to heart, share this video, and have a good night.